Why is he shirtless?
That's your first question?
I mean, how can you even ask that? Just look at him.
We are talking The Babysitter. This is a made-for-Netflix horror movie directed by McG. Obviously, quite a well-known director here. He's directed a number of kind of like explosive features in the style of kind of Michael Bay. Also, the man behind Supernatural. It stars Judah Lewis and Samara Weaving, who plays the babysitter. Interestingly enough, she's actually been in 3 episodes of Ash vs. the Evil Dead, so she's obviously got a horror pedigree here. She reminds me a lot of Margot Robbie, I've got to say, and they're actually both from Australia, so clearly that's what Australian women look like. Anyway, so the story here, as I'm sure you know, is this: we have this super hot babysitter who is looking after this 12-year-old boy for the weekend, and whilst the parents are away, she decides she's going to get a few friends over and do a satanic ritual to try and get each of their heart's desires, etc. They sacrifice one doofus that they bring with them and want the blood of this 12-year-old boy to complete the ritual. He obviously finds out and has to defend himself against these kind of group of satanic teenagers. So let's talk about what works and what didn't work with The Babysitter. I've got to say, let's talk about the negatives first of all, because I do have a few, and I feel maybe this movie gets a pass because it's kind of a horror comedy, and I feel when you kind of have a horror comedy, it's easy to kind of dismiss any critiques about the plot and stuff like, oh, it's a comedy, it doesn't take itself too seriously. But for me personally, if a comedy works, and let's just say spoof, it still has to be believable and kind of take place in the real world, so to speak. And I feel this movie just goes a little bit OTT in certain areas and kind of dismisses things that kind of may bother some people. For example, we have this kind of group of 5 kind of teenagers who essentially commit murder and want to kind of sacrifice this kind of, this one guy and kind of get the blood off this other one. But no one seems to have any qualms about it. Everyone seems completely fine with it. And, I'm led to believe at least 4 of them, maybe apart from the actual babysitter herself, haven't done this before, but they just seem completely confident in doing it without having any problems, killing people. And there's more, the body count is surprisingly high in this movie. So it kind of, I thought it just seemed a little weird to me that these almost come across as like seasoned serial killers rather than kind of teenagers who haven't really done this before. And I feel that even if it's a comedy, it should have still been addressed, if you ask my opinion. The cast here is pretty good. Certainly the main leads are a fantastic chemistry, but some of the other characters, Robbie Amell's kind of jock character seemed more like a cardboard cutout for me, very kind of one-note character, if you ask me. I have a small nitpick that has a bit of a spoiler attached to it, so if you haven't seen the film and don't know anything about it, then I suggest just kind of maybe skipping this one. So we learn through a line of dialogue that the babysitter herself has actually done this before. And the reasons for doing this satanic ritual are a little bit sketchy. They're not kind of really kind of, told to us about really what exactly is the reason for all this. But essentially what we do know is that she essentially wants this satanic ritual to become hot and popular or whatever. So we led to believe that she's done this before. So when ultimately the movie climaxes, what I thought was going to happen was she would kind of maybe revert back to another state, but that doesn't really happen. So it just seemed like a bit of a waste. So that's kind of a bit of a, I don't know, it just seemed like a bit of a missed opportunity to me. And this movie loves a bit of a setup. We have all these things kind of like, remember this bit for later on in the movie, remember that bit for later on in the movie. They do make a joke about it, which I did appreciate. And the other thing is, like I said, it just goes a little bit over the top in places. There's, the kid ultimately kills people, doesn't seem to be affected by it. There's all these explosions going on. No one ever seems to notice until obviously we get right to the end of the movie. Just a little bit kind of OTT. But what does work in this movie? First of all, I think the 2 central characters are fantastic. The relationship between the babysitter and the young boy is great. They played fantastically. Both actors do a great job of selling these performances in both kind of fun ways and kind of vulnerable ways. Very well acted by those two characters, and very well. The babysitter Samara Weaving has great face acting. I've got to say, she's very, very expressive in her facial acting. So I think she comes across as pretty fantastic. I've got to say, and of course, super hot. Reminds me a little bit of 68 Kill actually, which is another kind of psycho, super hot girlfriend type movie. Different setup, but just kind of reminded me a little bit. I love this movie. It's kind of quite self-referential. There's a few kind of like winks and nods to kind of other properties. Obviously, I guess most obviously Home Alone here, but there's loads of kind of little references and kind of little lines from other movies and stuff like that. So I did like that. McG is known for, well, he's not known for subtlety, let's put it like that. So this movie has a great pace. There's loads of kind of things happening. It's kind of the speed of this movie and kind of what happens. It's all pretty good. There's never a kind of a dull moment. It kind of rattles on at a good old pace, and all the characters are kind of quite cartoonish and kind of have a kind of a fun vibe to it. It's not a serious horror movie, but there are some kind of quite good, quite inventive kills here. Slightly gorier than I expected, and slightly higher body count than I expected. So overall, I've got to say, although I have some problems with maybe some of the script, I do feel it's still a fun film. Definitely worth your time if you're a kind of a slasher fan. A bit of a kind of a different take on the slasher genre. Overall, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.